Asphalt paving and maintenance, an industry with plenty of opportunities for those willing to put in the hard work. Today we're talking with Matt Green from AAA Top Quality Asphalt about how you can cash in on these high demand services.
This is hard work, you know what I mean? So this is like blue collar work, hard, tough. I mean, you're not gonna get much tougher in my opinion than roofing and then paving. Well, I would think between the paving machines, skid steers, crew trucks, all that, we might have 30, 35 pieces, maybe 40 to be honest with you, because we've got little trailers, water wagons, tack wagons. You got to educate the customer on the front end and get them to buy in. But then you got to put that also in the quote, not in the exclusions, but inside the quote. Hey, these were the trouble points. This is what we talked about. Put that in the body of the email and then reiterate that whenever we hand that off to the field guys, you know, later on after we've been awarded the project. Whatever you're comfortable with, you're going to be more successful at it. So if you're more comfortable with patch, seal, and stripe, stay with it. You don't have to get up to where the big boys are at or whatever. You know, to me, it's silly. You know what I mean? So if you're making money, you're doing what you're doing, and you're providing for your family, and you're able to patch, seal, and stripe, and you're profitable at it, I'd encourage you to do it. Just bid more of it. You know what I mean? We've got guys that in the office that are just relentless. You know, they're bidding every day. And I always tell our guys, if you don't bid it, you're not going to get it.
So Matt, for the younger guys, our younger audience that's out there, the painting, striping, sealing, how do they get started in that? Like, what equipment would they need? How do they price a job? You know, if they're brand new to that kind of industry. AAA Top Quality Asphalt is a full service paving company. Can you tell us about the services that you offer?
We provide a wide variety of services where, you know, you got some guys that just do like mainline paving, which is like I-4, 27, 75, those type of things. We'll do large and small projects like we're here today. This project's 9,000 tons. But, you know, if you wanted your driveway paved, we would go pave your driveway as well. So it kind of makes us diverse. You know, I've been through a downturn before with the economy in 08, so it just helps us to be diverse in what we're doing. We also, you know, we'll do asphalt repairs, you know, saw cut, you know, flip them out. We do seal coat and stripes. You know, we'll mill. We're doing new construction today, new construction commercial today. But we also do like industrial paving, you know, in industrial parks. We'll mill them out, you know, full depth mill down to the base and put it back. Then we'll also come in and just do an overlay over the existing asphalt as well. So we do a little bit of small base work, you know, if we're having to put some of these driveways in and stuff like that. But, you know, we're your full service asphalt maintenance, whether it's new or old type of company.
Nice. Would you say that there's a specific type of service that you have more jobs in than others? Or like, do you lean more commercial than residential?
Not really, to be honest with you. You know, kind of like we were talking about off camera. Our stuff's really just relationship based. So we don't really kind of get to pick and choose a little bit. You know, I know you're in the business too, so you understand. We bid a lot of work with, you know, our 4 inside sales guys, you know, so it's just kind of first come, first serve for the customer. But, you know, we're doing large and small, you know. We're usually going 3 different ways every day, whether that's paving 2 different ways. And then we're patch, sealing, and striping another way with another crew.
Is there a specific job that's more difficult than others? Like, is a residential job an easier job to do than a commercial job?
Yeah, a residential job is kind of tougher, to be honest with you, because you're trying to go in and retrofit a lot of times. And you don't have a set of drawings where, like this project, you know, that we're doing out here in Plant City, you have a set of drawings, you go by grades, you're matching curb lines, you know, you're trying to make the reveal, you know, you got your 6-inch reveal on the curb. So you've got, you know, God marks and things that you can go by where you're trying to give the customer a vision of what they want. And then that's why we kind of train our guys to go through and talk to the customer and tell them what are you expecting versus what you want. Because, you know, we all have wives, children, things like that. Their expectations are different than what they want. So we try to lead with that expectation, you know, verbiage. Because like yesterday, I walked in a project with a customer And there's little things that you can see over time, you know, of just being in an industry. So I'm walking the parking lot and I see a lot of dirt sitting there. So that means that the water is, you know, taking the dirt there.
Sure.
But also it's sitting there, so that's a low spot.
Sure.
And so you're trying to communicate to them that, yes, you're going to give them a better product to be better than what you left, but there might be still some holes in there where, you know, you're going to have an issue.
Definitely.
And a lot of times we come back and we address those issues. Not a lot, we do every time.
Yeah.
Because it's just not a foolproof method on the, you know, the private, you know, homeowner type driveway,
Sure.
things like that.
Yeah. So you managed to build AAA into a pretty big company. Can you give us a sense of the scale? Like how many employees do you have? How many jobs do you do a month on average?
We're probably going 3 different ways every day, each month. And then we have anywhere from 35 to 40 employees. A lot of the guys been working here, you know, 10 plus years. Like I said, we kind of look at it as external, customers as well as internal.
Sure.
So, you know, my internal customers are my guys. So we've got to keep them busy, you know, hours, benefits, time off, maintaining the schedules.
Yeah.
You know, their expectations. If you do that, then you'll create a loyalty from those guys. We have incentive programs. You know, we do, you know, Christmas parties and, you know, safety boot stuff, things like that. So that helps them, you know, helps us retain, you know, that internal customer.
Yeah. I mean, do you find most of your new employees from kind of word of mouth from employees that you already have, or how do you deal with the recruitment process? How do you find a good employee?
Yeah, since COVID, it's been a lot tougher, to be honest with you.
Sure.
Because before, you'd come in and you'd have a stack of, you know, resumes of guys wanting to come in. We've always kind of gotten guys from word of mouth from inside. And then, you know, I've worked at 2 different companies in 20 years of doing this paving. So what we've usually had to do is just get guys in and train them.
Sure.
You know, you train them as a, you know, labor guy, kind of get them up, you know, start running skid steers and rollers and pavers and things like that. So
is there a certain like quality that you can recognize in someone? Like when you bring them in, is there something where you can say this person's going to work out in this industry, or you know right away that they're not going to work out?
Yeah, this is hard work. You know what I mean? So this is like blue collar work, hard, tough. I mean, you're not going to get much tougher, in my opinion, than roofing.
Sure.
And then paving.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, some of those guys are interchangeable, to be honest with you. You'll get a guy that has roofed, so you know he can handle the heat. You can pretty much know by a handshake of a guy. Sure. And then kind of looking at him and sizing him up.
Okay.
You know, and saying, hey man, this is going to be real tough. Are you going to be able to be here at 5:45? Sometimes we're paving jobs till dark. You know, so you're at daylight to dark, especially with the time change now.
Yeah.
So you're paving from, you know, 5:45 to 7:30 at night, and then you're getting up and doing it the same, you know, the next day.
Yeah.
It's not every day, but so it takes a little bit of mental toughness.
Well, and we're here in Florida, so the roofing and asphalt paving, the heat is next level, you know, compared to, you know, that job taking place some other geographic location.
Oh, it's tough. I mean, a lot of times you're dealing with equipment issues, especially with paving. So you got, you know, this asphalt's going through the paving machine at 375 degrees, you know, outside it's 100, you know, humidity's 100%.
Yeah.
And you're just baking and you're on the back of that paving machine.
Yeah.
So when we have new hire guys, a lot of times they'll go to Walmart or someplace like that and buy these cheap boots, but they'll end up walking out of the boots by the end of the day.
Is that right?
It's just the asphalt's too hot.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you've managed to make it in the industry for 20 years now. How did you first get involved in asphalt paving industry?
It was just word of mouth for me. I had been teaching and coaching for about 8 years.
Okay.
And then I had a life change, and then I called a family member of mine. He got me a job at another company that started out there for 10 years. I worked there for 10 years as a project manager and become the vice president of construction. And then this opportunity opened up 10 years ago with Top Quality Asphalt. So Mike and Scott bought the company, brought me in as the managing partner. And so, you know, here we are 10 years later.
Yeah. So as a managing partner, like, what does your day-to-day role look like? Like, what are your responsibilities? Are you everything from prospecting to actual, being on site here?
Yeah, the way I was taught up in, in this world of construction is everything's everybody's job.
Sure.
So, I can be taking out the trash at the office. I can be bidding jobs. We were talking about social media. I try to do all the social media. I post social media. I'm bidding, selling, collecting. Yeah. I'm overseeing, looking at the bids. I run the schedule. I got Dwayne and Brandon and Lance that run the field. So
okay.
I don't have to worry about that stuff. They're communicating back and forth on what's going on, like today, So kind of got my hand in everything.
Yeah.
Mike's over the equipment. Scott's dealing with what he's dealing with on the financial part of it.
Sure.
So we just, it's a good mix between the three of us.
Yeah. You mentioned social media, and you've had some posts that have gone viral.
Yeah.
What would you say? What advice would you give to people as far as like, should they be doing social media for their company? And how do you represent what you're doing on the job in the best way, to bring people to your company?
Yeah. I would encourage people to do it.
Okay.
And be consistent. So do it. Be consistent with the way that you format your videos.
Okay.
And your pictures, with the fonting and with your phone number and everything. So if you look on Instagram, all of our stuff looks exactly the same, like the same format.
Sure.
And I don't have any special apps that I use. I just kind of use Instagram. I pick their music and go. I also look at like what I see some of our friends posting. I've got other friends in the industry. I kind of, look at theirs and see what they do. I mean, we've talked about American Pavement, what they do. We kind of look at them. I mean, they're kind of people you can look up in the industry too. And I would say just be consistent, do it. Because a lot of times there's people out there looking at this that you really just don't know.
Sure.
And so a lot of times the customer, it's nice for the customer because, I do buy things outside of obviously, doing business.
Yeah.
So it's a way for that customer to educate themselves on what you do. And a lot of people just don't want to interact that much, it seems like. So they can pull up Instagram, look at our jobs, look and see what we do. And then I've had that before where, hey man, I looked at your website. Golly, you guys got a lot of good stuff on there. I've looked at some of these other guys' websites. I can tell it's just a boilerplate type, whatever, run of the mill. And, you weren't the lowest, but we're still going to go ahead and move forward with you. And,
sure.
We appreciate that.
Yeah. So you've actually gotten jobs from social media posting.
Yeah. Website, social media.
What other ways, like, do you have a sales team that brings new leads in? And like, what is your role in that? Are you working directly with municipalities as well to like bid jobs and acquire business that way?
Yeah, we're very blessed. We're very fortunate. I've lived in this area my entire life, except for college and that little brief, stint of coaching.
Sure.
But, word of mouth, Scott and Mike graduated from Winter Haven High School. They're here. They've been here for a long time. They've lived in these areas for 60 plus years.
Wow.
So, you've got a lot of that going for you. This company is actually 20 years old. So it's a brand that's been in the industry for a long time itself. And, we get a lot of word of mouth. Our website, we have a partner that helps us do those things.
Sure.
So we get a lot of leads in off of that, existing customers. And then, like I said, word of mouth from existing customers. So we're usually running anywhere from 8 to 12 weeks out in the schedule.
Okay.
And it changes. Like, just got a phone call this morning. We were supposed to be paving next week for a customer, and they're not ready.
Sure.
So we got to switch up. So we're never too busy for anybody. To be honest with you, the Lord always works it out in the schedule and what we're doing. So I don't kind of worry about that. I always tell people just to hang tight. Give us your desired date on when you want to get it paved, and we'll work it in the schedule.
Nice. So we've got some equipment working behind us here. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about the fleet of vehicles that you have in order to do all the different jobs that you guys do.
Yeah, it's kind of it's a process.
Sure.
So, you got to get the guys there in the morning. We get there early. They get out, they get to the job. They're in crew trucks, 4, 5, 7 guys, however many in a crew truck, they get here. Then we've got dump trucks that have to go to the plant. So they obviously got to wait in line. They get loaded.
Sure.
They get out here, and then we've got, our skid steers, our pavers, steel wheel roller, traffic roller, those type of deals. And then we still haven't even paved yet.
Right.
Then you got to get here, put the asphalt through the paving machine, start paving, and then, then we're rolling with our traffic roller, our steel wheel roller, and we're sanding the asphalt. We're doing quality control. So it's a big process.
Yeah.
And a lot of times these guys, because they've been doing it so long and they know what they're doing, they make it look really easy, but it's really not that easy of a process.
How many vehicles total would you say encompass like the entire fleet that you manage, between like the skid steers and trucks and all that, dump trucks and everything?
Well, I would think between the paving machines, skid steers, crew trucks, all that, we might have 30, 35 pieces, maybe 40 to be honest with you, because we've got little trailers, water wagons, tack wagons. We've got the walk behind line stripers that we use with riders. So yeah, paint trailers. Yep.
Is there any software that you use to manage that fleet of vehicles, or do you use software also? Is there something that kind of manages the entire process for you? Vehicles, bidding jobs, project management, things like that?
We have a CRM that we use, One Crew, and that goes through and that deals with everything that we do, bidding, tracking jobs, billing, you name it, along with QuickBooks in there helping us.
Nice.
But we also use IQ4 Mobility, so that they have GPS on all the crew trucks and things, the dump trucks that we have. So I'm able to pull that up on my phone and find out where somebody's at any time and see what they're doing. We don't really have a problem with that with our guys, because in the paving world, it's a little different than, site contracting and some of these others where you're usually on the job maybe 1 or 2 days and then you're off to the next.
Sure.
So we don't have guys lagging and doing things like that, but it's been good for insurance and other things like that, and just accountability in general.
What's the profit margin like on some of the different jobs? Just like as a scale, do commercial jobs have a better profit margin than residential jobs, or does it just depend on the nature of the work that you're doing?
Kind of depends on the nature of the work and the degree of difficulty.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So a lot of times when you're doing, when we're doing jobs where we control the whole schedule, then, we're probably going to do a little better than the jobs where we're working for somebody else and we're having to navigate and jump through hoops and, start and stop. The one-day jobs are really good. You can go in and blow them out and get done and, move on.
You mentioned a little bit that you came from a little bit of coaching before getting involved in the asphalt and paving industry. Is there any skills that you had as a coach that help you or have helped you in the 20 years of being in this industry?
Yeah. Be honest with you, coaching and teaching, that helps you in construction, because, you need to follow up and follow through with what you're doing. You have to do the same thing when you're teaching, same thing with the guys here. The interpersonal communication skills, because a lot of times you're the middleman.
Sure.
So you're trying to help your guys, make them happy. You're dealing with ownership on our side. You're also dealing with the ownership for the GC and the ownership of site work company or whoever you're dealing with. So you kind of got to make everybody happy. And sometimes it can be tough.
Sure.
But, using those skills, scheduling, you have to be pretty regimented, when you're teaching and coaching. So same thing here, we have a schedule, we stick to it. Rules, expectations, all that ties into it. Dress code, all of our guys wear, our orange shirts, and, they're all branded.
Sure. What, when you think back, you've been doing this for a long time, for 20 years, is there any mistakes that you made in those early years that you say, if I would have done this differently, if I would have known this thing, it would have made my life much easier, looking back on that in hindsight?
Yeah, we implement something here. So before, you're trying to make everybody happy as a sales guy. So I've been there before where, somebody calls in, hey man, blah, 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 I need this looked at. Okay, well, what time can you look at it? I really can't be out there. So then you're trying to format your schedule to their schedule. Oh, it's okay, I'll go look at it. You go look at it, and then it's not what they want.
Sure.
And then they're frustrated and you're frustrated. So what we do now is, you're asking for like one little thing. That's one thing now.
Okay.
Hey, I can be here on such date to look at this. Well, I can't be there. Okay, that's fine. Let's pick another day.
Sure.
Well, you can go ahead and look at it yourself. No, I'd rather be there when you're there, because I want to know what you're expecting versus what you're wanting.
Sure.
And then, because a lot of times you'll send a bid. If you don't go out, you don't walk it with the customer, you're not really getting that one-on-one with them there, and then them explaining to you, because there's things that they forget. Oh yeah, the water holds here, this happens there. You know what? You know, my dog comes out here, whatever those things are. It's just some little weird nuance. You don't get that. And then you go do the job, you've been awarded the job, and then it's, well, man, that's not what I was thinking. Well, we gave you a map, we gave you a scope of work, you know, we told you, you watched us do the whole job.
Right.
Now that we're gone, you know, now you have a question. So we've eliminated a lot of that by just doing that.
It's more of like a consultative sales approach.
Yes.
Having that conversation up front so that the expectations are met further down the road.
Yeah, especially on those jobs like, you know, this one is not one of those projects. This is a set of drawings where everybody's going by the same rules. You know, you're paving the curb lines, you're doing whatever you're doing, and you're golden.
Yeah.
When you're doing these, I call them miscellaneous projects, where we're going in and milling and paving, you know, say it's a bank, or if it's a Hardee's or a McDonald's, and you know, you go through, you really want to walk that with that guy. And as a sales guy, PM, you know, there's areas you can see where the water stained the asphalt.
Sure.
Well, a lot of times people think just because you come in and you do new pavement, it's going to take everything away. It's not. It's just not. So if it holds water here, it's going to hold water here later. Because all we're doing is putting an inch on top of it.
Sure.
Now we can level it and then try to pave it, but we'll chase that water out to another area.
Okay.
So it's just not going to be perfect. It wasn't perfect before. Automatically, it's not going to be perfect when we come out and try to pave it again. Yeah. That's where you really kind of, you got to educate the customer on the front end and get them to buy in. But then you got to put that also in the quote, not in the exclusions, but inside the quote.
Yeah.
Hey, these were the trouble points. This is what we talked about. Put that in the body of the email, and then reiterate that whenever we hand that off to the field guys, you know, later on after we've been awarded the project.
Can you tell us about a situation where something went sideways for you and how you dealt with it to fix that problem?
Yeah. A couple things, like with scheduling, one thing is, and we've kind of tweaked that a little bit this year, it's hard because, you know, we've got 4 different guys selling work.
Sure.
And so when they get the job, then they're going to put it in the first available spot. So what we've tried to do this year, a little bit more than other years, is try to piggyback those when, so I don't want to have a crew paving in Clearwater and then paving in Cocoa Beach.
Sure.
You know what I mean? It's too far away from each other. You know, try to keep them regionally, you know, in line. So we've noticed that. And then with the schedule, you can get sideways with things like that too, with the plant locations, you know, if they're too far away. There's a lot of things that go inside of that. So I try to control the schedule and try to navigate through those things as best we can. It's hard because, like I said, we've got 4 guys bidding and selling. So, you know, we get a purchase order from them or a signed contract. We put you in and we're going. But that's one little other nuance that I would give somebody a tip on is scheduling. Same thing with your project managers or your sale guys. You know, you're getting phone calls and you're getting leads. You can kind of run yourself ragged as a sales guy because, yeah, I went to Lakeland today and I did 3, but then I drove through Winter Haven and now I got to go back to Winter Haven tomorrow, or, you know what I mean? So a little bit of planning, a little bit of scheduling will help go a long way. We try to have, you know, somebody calls in within 24 hours, we're out there watching, doing, walking with you, and then getting the bid back to you within another 24. So.
All right. People are watching our videos, they want to learn about it, and they maybe want to start their own business. Is that something that an individual can start their own paving business? Or what's a way to kind of step into starting in the industry?
To me, this is a super hard business.
Okay. And
you really got to know what you're doing. And you really got to have guys in the field to know what they're doing. Because you can get sideways quick.
Okay. With,
you know, not doing a job right, or you're in there, you're doing the job right, the grades aren't right, now you're going over asphalt. Asphalt's expensive.
Sure.
So you can go over a job 300 ton, I mean, you could be talking 30, 40 grand. So you can get sideways real quick if you don't have people that know what they're doing, when to stop things,
sure,
you name it. So yeah, I wouldn't I wouldn't suggest stepping off into that. I would, if you're going to do anything, you would seal, stripe, patch, kind of, and then work your way up. But it's super important to make sure you have, you know, the right operators, you know, the guys that are doing the right things, that know the right things in the field, that, you know where the red flags are at, you know what I mean? That type of stuff.
Sure.
On the front end, it has to be the same way. You have to have somebody in the office that knows, you know, how much the crews can do, what they can get out of them each day, because that's part of it as well. But you also have to know what the pricing is, you know, what you can get out of each machine. You know, so it's a process, and knowledge is power.
Have you ever seen anyone move from like that seal, stripe, patch level into being more of a full service company? Or is that like a specialty unto itself? Like those people kind of stay there and do that thing, and then you have your paving companies that do that work?
That's what I would say, to be honest with you, is whatever you're comfortable with, you're gonna be more successful at it.
Sure.
So if you're more comfortable with, you know, patch, seal, and stripe, stay with it. You don't have to get up to where the big boys are at or whatever. You know, to me, it's silly. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So if you're making money, you're doing what you're doing, and you're providing for your family, and you're able to patch, seal, and stripe, and you're profitable at it, I'd encourage you to do it. Just bid more of it.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So, and that's, you know, Mr. Stanley, I kind of reference those guys a lot. He says that, you know what I mean? Paving, you know, same thing. You know, if you're good at paving, just pave, mill, pave, overlay. I've got friends in the industry, that's all they do. They don't do some of the smaller things that we do, you know?
Interesting, okay.
So we kind of get into some smaller things just because of, you know, being an asphalt maintenance. I mean, we do new paving as well.
Sure.
Commercial, residential, and industrial. But, you know, for the amount of guys that we got to keep everybody profitable and going, we have, you know, different avenues that we kind of, you know, go down.
Yeah, definitely. Well, if people are looking for jobs in the paving industry, are you guys hiring right now? Do you always hire?
Yeah, we're always hiring, you know, laborers, you know, rollermen, paver operators, you know, you name it, you know, mechanics.
Sure.
You know, you name it, we're hiring guys. You know, so if anybody's interested, definitely give us a shout, 863-521-5454.
Nice.
Or just look us up on YouTube, Facebook. You know, we're there. But yeah, we're always looking for good people that, you know, want to come in, roll their sleeves up, and get to work.
Sure. Do they need previous experience, or you'll take someone on and give them the training that they need?
It's preferable if you have some, but if you don't, you know, what we'll do is we'll sit down, talk to you, and then we'll kind of assess you from there.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And then kind of take it, you know, not to be redundant, but take it from there as far as that goes, because some guys just, you can tell it's just, with the type of work we're doing, it might not fit.
If you have like some sage advice to share to people that are out there, is there anything in general that you've learned over the 20 years, you know, about business, about life, about maybe finding your why, about, you know, why to work hard and things like that?
I was super lucky to have great mentors, you know, growing up, whether it was, you know, Howard Cohn helping me with coaching, Tim Coakley, that was another coach and, you know, mentor of mine, Ryan Smith. You got, you know, in the site business where I worked at before, you know, Tommy Willoughby, Ron Miller, those guys, Chip Tucker, you know, you had these guys that really poured into me.
Sure.
So I was able to watch them and see what they did, you know, for me. And I try to do that with our guys, help them out, make their jobs easier, you know, love on them, tell them I appreciate them. You know, we've always had plenty of work for these guys. I've never said, hey, you know, we just don't have anything to do today, go home.
Sure.
We've always been able to bill, be profitable, you know, at both companies, you know, anywhere I've been doing what we're doing. And, you know, the Lord's blessed us with that. We've got guys that in the office that are just relentless. You know, they're bidding every day.
Yeah.
And I always tell our guys, if you don't bid it, you're not going to get it.
Sure.
Now there's some jobs, we looked at one job yesterday that was in Winter Garden, and it was, you know, fabric and rock and pavers, and that's really not up our alley. That's why I said, you know, going back to, you got to be comfortable with the job that you're doing, whether it's patch, seal, and stripe, paving, whatever. That's not in our wheelhouse. We're going to set ourselves up for failure.
Yeah.
To tell the customer, hey, you know, this is kind of really what we're going to do or what we can do and be successful at. You know, we're going to pass on this.
Yeah.
And helping the customer. Tommy always told me, you know, if we can't do it, maybe suggest somebody else that we know that can, instead of just, I can't do it and you're done.
Yeah.
You know, they'll always remember that. Or if they don't, it doesn't matter. You did the right thing. You know, you helped somebody, you pushed them to the right place, and you can move on and do your deal. But, you know, treating people right, building relationships, saying thank you, you know, loving on your guys, appreciating them, you know, build those relationships with your customers, and just working hard every day, and not expecting everything to go right, because not everything's going to go right in construction. So if you're getting upset where things are going wrong and all that, you might kind of reassess, you know, your expectations, because it's not feasible.
Sure.
You know, you've got, you know, you're dealing with people, you're dealing with machines, you're dealing with asphalt plants, you know, you're dealing with traffic now. And in Florida, you know, I mean, used to, we could bounce around and get a couple little small jobs done in a day. Those days are over. I mean, even where we're at Winter Haven, I mean, it takes you almost an hour to get across town.
Yep.
So it's just, you know, those are the different things that you have to navigate.
So Matt, for the younger guys, our younger audience that's out there, the painting, striping, sealing, how do they get started in that? Like, what equipment would they need? How do they price a job, you know, if they're brand new to that kind of industry?
With a person doing that, what's nice now versus when I was growing up, you know, I don't think I'm that old. I'm 48, but sometimes it feels like it. You know, we had an air conditioner guy come to the house yesterday.
Sure.
And so we were kind of joking about a cell phone. Well, I didn't have a cell phone. Our phone was on the wall in the kitchen, with a cord about that long. So now with these really aren't cell phones, these are computers. So you can go online. I had a heating element go out in my dryer. I'm pretty mechanical. I looked it up online, figured out how to do it. I did it myself.
Sure.
So the power is in your hand, in my opinion. You know, it ain't like when I was in school, you had to go to the library and look up whatever and do the Dewey Decimal System and find the car. You know what I mean? All those things. So you can, the knowledge is in your hand.
Sure.
So go to YouTube, you know, you can go price out the equipment, you know, go to the suppliers. The suppliers will help you as well. I mean, we deal with like Naira, and we deal with these other guys, Graco, people that sell line stripers and, you know, sell the liquid. They're there to help you as well.
Sure.
So, I mean, if you need to rent a tanker or do whatever, and they can walk you through the pricing. I mean, you know, Tony's been great for us. You know, he used to own his own company in Cincinnati. So, you know, I have a lot of times where I'm calling, hey, you know, the seal ain't sticking or something this, and he's already got the answer because he's done it, I don't know, probably for 45 years.
Right.
So knowledge is power.
Your success is their success too.
Exactly.
So they want to help you.
Yeah. And the same thing for them. I mean, so if, you know, a guy wants to start doing those things, then for him, he can just go through the suppliers, get the pricing, find out what the equipment costs, and then figure out on his side, his labor, you know, what his overhead is.
Sure.
You know, your overhead, obviously, your insurance, you know, all the things, your trucks, all the, you know, fuel getting there, you know, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So once a guy can figure that out, put that in, you know, mix it up, that's his cake he's baking. And then after that, then you got to track it.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And be very meticulous in what you're doing and tracking, just like you do, or you should do, with your budget at your house. So now you know what you're making, what's going in, what's going out, and then, you know, you can see where your through line is, and then that's whenever you can start making some money.
Definitely. Congratulations on building such an amazing company. We've always seen mentoring other people is so important. Yeah. So we really appreciate your time. It was great meeting you.
Thanks. You know, it's not one person that does it. That's the other thing. You know, I might be the face on the camera or whatever, but you know, we're thankful. It takes the guy on the shovel all the way to the owner signing the paychecks. Yep. So that's really what's key, is there's really nobody more important than anybody else. You know, everybody has their job, everybody has their office, their station, whatever you want to call it. If everybody's doing it, then the wheel goes. One guy doesn't do it, and there's where you have the issue.
That's right.
Yeah.